And we have breaking news. Cassie Ventura is now on the stand in the Sean Diddy Combs trafficking trial. Among other things, the singer is expected to address the 2016 video of Combs attacking her in a hotel when she was his girlfriend. Combs has pleaded not guilty. His attorneys argue the video is evidence of jealousy, not trafficking. And now for this first time, jurors are hearing what Cassie has to say about that and other aspects.
Diddy's troubles have now deepened as after years of silence, Cassie Ventura is now ready to come and out tell the full story.
It's only day 2 of this trial, but today is massive because we're going to hear the testimony of victim 1, who has now been officially named as Cassie Ventura for the first time, and she is the prosecution's main witness.
From the moment Cassie Ventura took the stand, the atmosphere shifted. All eyes shifted from the polished man in the sharp designer suit to the woman in the brown dress who walked in with a presence that could not be ignored. She wasn't timid, she wasn't fidgety, she was centered, pregnant and poised. She never looked in his direction, and that silence between their eyes screamed louder than anything because Cassie had come to speak and she had everything to say.
Is he showing any reaction to what she is saying on the stand?
I can tell you that immediately, the moment she opened her mouth, you could see that Combs was listening intently to everything that she has to say, as well as those jurors. People know that she was that star witness, the key person in all of this. When you think about that civil suit that came out in 2023, that was settled the day after.
What started as an introduction spiraled into a full excavation of a relationship that had long been hidden behind red carpets and hit records. Cassie, once the quiet background figure beside the music mogul, now held center stage. Her voice didn't shake, at least not at first. She walked the jury through the earliest stages of their relationship, when she was barely out of her teens and he was already a giant in the industry. A dream for her, a project for him. He shaped her music, her look, her every move. He molded the narrative, and according to her, he molded her will. Cassie described how everything in their relationship was under his thumb. From what she wore to when she slept, it was all dictated. The jury leaned forward as she mentioned a series of events that began a year into their relationship. What she said, he called freak-offs. The term hit the courtroom like a slap. She explained what they were. Events organized and controlled by Diddy where she would engage sexually with someone else while he watched. She was young, she said, too young to know how to say no. She wanted to please him. And that desire to please soon led her into situations that made her feel used, broken, and unrecognizable to herself.
She really is the person that connects all the dots. When you look at the indictment and you look at some of the charges, she's the one talking about the freak-offs and what was involved and how she had to act. The prosecution is asking her questions to show that she wasn't in control. She said that Sean Combs directed everything from what she had on to the lighting in the room to how she was supposed to interact with the person that she was having sex with. And again, just to reiterate what is a freak-off, the freak-off essentially was something that Cassie said she learned about through Sean Combs about a year into their relationship. He described it as voyeurism, wanting to watch her have sex with someone else. And she said that she did it because she was 22, 21, she was young, she didn't know any better, and that she wanted to please Sean Combs.
She didn't start crying when describing the physical abuse. She didn't break when she mentioned how he tracked her every move. But when she was asked if she ever enjoyed those so-called freak-offs, her voice cracked. Yes, she said, but not because of what they were. She said she enjoyed the rare moments of intimacy she got with him afterward, the one-on-one time she craved, because she loved him. That moment hit like a gut punch, revealing how psychological manipulation can be as brutal as a fist. What followed was a list of horrors that no amount of courtroom decorum could soften. She spoke of violent outbursts, of being struck, dragged, stomped, of being cut off from friends, of being left to orchestrate these twisted sessions like some kind of assistant instead of a partner. The term job was even used. She said that arranging these sessions eventually became a task she was expected to manage. And the fear? It was constant. Fear of his retaliation, fear of his influence, and above all, fear that no one would believe her. Not when he was Diddy.
Cassie Ventura says she endured for years. She also got into the nature of those so-called freak-offs, saying that they involved hiring an escort performed under the direction of Combs, saying that they happened so frequently, it eventually became a job for her to set them up.
As her testimony grew more detailed, Diddy's public persona began to fracture. The man who had glided into court with confidence now sat restless, visibly rattled. He tugged at his collar. He scribbled frantically on notepads. He whispered to his attorneys with increasing desperation. At one point, he couldn't stop fidgeting, drawing all eyes to his twitching fingers and strained jaw. One of his attorneys reportedly tried to calm him with a hand on his shoulder, but his composure kept slipping. Then came the visuals. Cassie presented messages and emails projected for the court to see. They weren't polished screenshots curated for PR. They were raw, time-stamped fragments of a reality she had lived. Messages where he allegedly apologized for violent nights. Promises that it wouldn't happen again. Offers of expensive gifts in exchange for silence. The court held its breath as each one appeared, delivering a blow stronger than words alone could manage. They weren't just messages, they were confessions. And still, it got worse. Cassie described physical assaults that made the jury physically recoil. Being slammed against walls, choked to the point of blacking out. A Miami rental house where he allegedly pushed her down the stairs. With every word, the polished mogul sitting across from her seemed to shrink. His skin pale, eyes unfocused. Even reporters who had covered countless celebrity scandals whispered that they'd never seen a courtroom react like this. But the true detonation came when she spoke of the Four Seasons Hotel. That incident had never made the gossip columns. It hadn't been teased in previous filings. It had been kept locked away in silence. She said he became enraged during an after-party, accused her of disrespect, and dragged her out of a public setting into an elevator. She said hotel security saw but did nothing. She remembered the marks on her arms, the tears on her face, and the silence that followed. Then came the photos. Cassie had taken pictures the morning after the hotel attack. They weren't professional. They were messy, grainy, taken in a bathroom mirror, but they were real. Bruises, swelling, a lip cracked open. When the jury saw them, the air changed. One juror covered her mouth, another couldn't look. A third wrote notes with a trembling hand. Diddy's lawyers objected furiously, trying to block the photos. But the judge wasn't swayed. He overruled every protest and the images stayed up. At this point, Cassie's words were almost secondary. The evidence now spoke for itself.
Diddy's ex was grilled on the stand today over their so-called freak-offs. That's Cassie Ventura this morning, 9 months pregnant and surrounded by security as she headed here to federal court to be cross-examined. Inside, Diddy's defense attorney focused on some of the extremely graphic text messages they exchanged, suggesting Cassie not only helped plan the alleged drug-fueled parties, but also enjoyed them.
The defense tried to object. They argued consent. They argued jealousy. They argued that Cassie knew what she was getting into, but with every objection, they looked more desperate. Cassie's story was no longer just a testimony. It was an avalanche, one that showed no signs of stopping.
25 pages of text messages, one from 2009, the same year the couple collabed on this music video. Diddy asks, "When do you want to freak off? LOL. Cassie replies, "I'm always ready to freak off."
As the court recessed that day, people didn't rush out the way they usually do. They moved slowly, digesting everything they had just heard. Diddy didn't look at anyone. The superstar mogul who had walked in, surrounded by supporters and flashing cameras, now sat hunched, his empire cracking beneath him and his past finally catching up. The mask he had worn so long had been ripped off, and in its place was just a man, exposed, cornered, and utterly unable to reclaim the control he once thought permanent. As the second day resumed, no one in that courtroom was the same. Not the jurors, not the attorneys, not the man who once ruled the music world with $1 billion touch. The moment Cassie returned to the stand, it was like hitting play on a tape. Everyone was too horrified to stop. The courtroom wasn't just witnessing testimony. It was watching a narrative unravel, thread by thread in real time. Cassie's attorney pressed play. The room went still. Diddy's voice filled the courtroom speakers. People didn't gasp. They didn't mutter. They sat frozen. What they had just heard wasn't media spin or rumor. It was Sean Diddy Combs exposing himself in a way years of public relations had never allowed. And the jury had heard every syllable. By the time court resumed, Diddy was a ghost of the man who had walked in the day before. No more notes to his lawyers, no more tugging at his cuffs. Just a pale, hollowed-out expression as he stared at the table, avoiding Cassie's eyes, but Cassie wasn't done. She had more, so much more. Now came the network, the web, the people around Diddy who, knowingly or not, played roles in keeping her isolated. The prosecution brought up photos of individuals in Diddy's inner circle, not just handlers or assistants, key players. His former chief of staff, his personal security, a driver, even someone who allegedly handled financial arrangements. Cassie knew their names, she knew their roles, she told the jury what each one did and how they helped insulate Diddy from consequence.
And she says that the one time she did try to leave, things turned violent. And she's referring to that 2016 video that jurors have seen multiple times at this point from a Los Angeles hotel where you see Combs kicking and dragging her. She says moments before that, Combs had given her a black eye during a freak off, so she grabbed her things to leave. And that is when that video started recording. She says that was his reaction. So the jury is continuing today to hear more disturbing allegations from Ventura.
This wasn't just a toxic relationship. According to the prosecution, this was a fully functioning operation designed to fulfill one man's desires while keeping his partner silent and under control. They painted a picture of a criminal enterprise disguised as a music empire, and Cassie wasn't guessing. She was detailing it like someone who had lived through every shadowed hallway. The texts weren't about music or industry gossip. They were small digital lifelines from people who had caught glimpses behind the curtain. But those weren't the only texts. The most damning came from Diddy himself. Messages where he seemingly acknowledged behavior that couldn't be explained away. You know how I get when I drink? It won't happen again. These weren't just bad look texts. They were potential admissions buried in casual language and financial offerings. A trail of words left behind by a man who never thought he'd have to answer for them. When those messages were read aloud, several members of Diddy's entourage began to leave. Quietly. One by one, the same people who had flanked him on his way into court now slipped out the back, unwilling to sit through the fallout. By the time the court broke for the afternoon, Diddy was nearly alone at his table. The power had drained from his corner of the room. Cassie, meanwhile, was still speaking. She told the jury about how her world was carefully shrunk, how friendships were monitored, how her phone was allegedly tracked, how every decision she made was filtered through what he wanted. Her sense of identity chipped away until there was nothing left but what he allowed. She described how she stopped seeing herself as a partner and began seeing herself as property. Then came the most gutting part. Cassie said she thought she was going to die. It wasn't delivered with drama. It was quiet, like someone stating the sky is blue. She said she feared she wouldn't make it out of that hotel room, that if she screamed, no one would hear her, that if she ran, no one would believe her. She described a champagne bottle being thrown at her head, just barely missing her. The destruction in the hotel room, the physical confinement, her phone taken, her voice ignored. 48 hours trapped, bruised, and terrified. And yet the next day, the world kept turning. The press snapped pictures of Diddy smiling at events. Interviews praised his latest business move. Nobody knew until now.
At times, Ventura broke down on the witness stand, describing physical abuse by Combs and being forced to participate in marathon sex performances. Combs has pleaded not guilty in the sex trafficking trial and says all sexual encounters were consensual.
As she told that part of the story, courtroom observers reported something unexpected: sympathy from the jury. A few visibly reacted. One juror even wiped tears away discreetly. The defense had yet to cross-examine, but it was already clear that Cassie had struck a nerve. Not just legally, emotionally, socially. Her story wasn't just about two people. It was about the machinery of fame, power, and silence, and how easily someone can be swallowed whole by it. What made it all the more haunting was how calm she remained. She wasn't delivering her story with rage or dramatics. She was reflective, thoughtful, at times even compassionate. She admitted moments of confusion. She admitted that she loved him, that she thought at one time that he loved her too. She wasn't painting herself as perfect. She was painting herself as human. And it was this humanity that made the testimony land so hard. The courtroom ended the day in near silence. People didn't want to talk. They didn't want to speculate. They just wanted to breathe. Because what had just been laid bare wasn't tabloid fodder or social media headlines. It was the raw, unedited story of a decade-long descent into control and abuse, one that had been happening in plain sight, behind glittering stages and sold-out shows. Diddy left the courtroom flanked only by legal counsel. No more smiles, no more nods, just a man walking out under the weight of everything he tried so hard to hide. And Cassie, she had only just begun.